Welcome to Season 4, Episode 31 of the Outlap F1 Podcast, part of the Ship It Studios Podcast Network. This is the 2022 Hungarian Grand Prix race review. I am your host, James, along with my wonderful co-hosts, Andy and Deanna. And I'm not having a good time. Make me feel better, Andy.
Well, first of all, we're all together, or at least the three of us are together. It's the first time I think we've done a show with more than two hosts on it in about, 2-3 months, something like that. It's been a while, so it's good to see everybody. So in that spirit, hey, at least it could be worse. But yeah.
Both Ferraris finished.
With. Yeah, it's true.
It's a positive.
That's true.
That's like a real thin silver lining. But
it's better than the last couple of races, so. Forward progress?
True.
Maybe.
I found my coping mechanism after tough races is to open the bottle of bourbon John got me after winning that bet, and I have a couple of those, so that slowly gets me back.
They did satisfy the first rule to finish first. They must first finish, so at least they're halfway there. Look at it, it's really simple from now on.
Yeah, simple. Well, we'll get it all in a minute, but first, let me remind everybody you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. Of course, you can check out our link tree in our Twitter profile page. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a solid and click like and subscribe. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, click the 5-star button to help us out. You can email the show at chatnow@outlapf1.com. You can check out our website at www.outlapf1.com, where you can find all of our old episodes, including our F1 for Beginners episode back on Season 4 of this season. Brings you in, or teaches you about F1 from soup to nuts, kind of gives you a better idea of what the hell's going on your TV. Andy, why don't you tell us about Outlap F1 Nation?
Yes, and mega thank you, as always, to our monetary supporters of Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Cody Walsh, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, Mary Brown, Jonathan Scott, and, of course, Matt Polanski from the Red Sector MotoGP podcast. If you'd like to become a member of the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, please do check out our link in our show notes. It all goes to making new equipment, as you can see today. James has his charger. It's now functioning. He's now back up and running on the video, which is an improvement from Wednesday. So that's where it all goes. It goes into getting us new equipment and keeping the lights on around here. That's literally what we do. Also, please do feel free to check out the good folks at Manscaped. Please do take advantage of our code OUTLAP and get the 20% off and free shipping. And I bet this is probably in the drawer for the next little bit. Vincenzo Landino, our good friend, he does have a shirt line, the F1Guy.com. The Scuderia is Back shirt looks beautiful, but I don't know that it's worthy of being worn right now. And James has opted not to wear it. He's wearing our merch, and he looks good in it too.
Any red I own is in the deepest, darkest parts of my dresser for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I understand. I feel you. Also, please do check out our one of our newer sponsors, Athletic Greens, www.athleticgreens.com/emerging for some delicious and nutritious ways to start your day off right. It's good stuff. Feel free to go check it out. And if you listen to my little ad that I read halfway through the episodes here, there's a code you can get some discounts. So take advantage of all that.
And also, we are sponsored this week by the Portage Park Development Project, a thriving community in the Upland Metaverse. If you are from Chicago, Portage Park might sound familiar. That's because the Upland Metaverse is based on real-world cities and properties, and Portage Park is an actual neighborhood in Chicago. The Metaverse version of Portage Park is the most developed neighborhood in Upland, with over 700 supportive members and property owners, enjoying competitions, community initiatives, and local shops with monthly town hall meetings to connect these fellow Uplanders. And now, racing is coming to Upland. Portage Park are developing a racing team ready to fight for the top step of the podium. We have a training academy for drivers and racetracks in development, making the most of our shops and local attractions. We want to show the best Portage Park has to offer. Come join us. Links to the Portage Park Discord server, racing track maps, and socials are in our podcast show notes. We hope to see you in the metaverse. All right, let's start off with headlines of the day. Andy, go ahead.
Oh, Ferrari. This isn't funny anymore. Max Verstappen is very simply setting a standard, and now he has one whole hand. I gave him 3 fingers last week. I'm giving him a whole hand now on the 2022 Drivers' World Championship. And ironically enough, in a weekend where Sebastian Vettel has chosen to walk away from the sport, this championship with what Max is doing now for Red Bull kind of feels like a prototypical Seb Vettel World Championship Red Bull season. The parallels are kind of scary if you actually look at it. So, yeah, that's my headline.
Thank you, Andy. Deanna, what do you got?
Ferrari just keeps Ferrarying. I think it's, at this rate, if we keep up on the trend that we are going, this is going to be a team with probably the best, fastest car, maybe not most reliable, but looking at probably third of the constructors. It's getting bad. It's getting grim.
It's already a common theme going in this episode. My headline, what a way to enter the summer break. Things look grim after a couple races ago, and it's like there's this one more race. Bernardo seems positive, confident. Like maybe we'll get it 1-2 just to trick ourselves into being happy for the summer break, and who knows what can happen in the second half of the season. And then today happened, so that dream is put on hold for the moment, but we can get more into that in a little bit. First, we do have a news item, which is rare for the reviews, but of course, not long after me and Andy finish up that preview episode, some rather large news was dropped. So, Andy, why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, so Sebastian Vettel, the aforementioned 4-time Drivers' World Champion with Red Bull, currently driving for Aston Martin, did announce after this season he's going to walk away from Formula One and announces his retirement. It does actually open up now a legit F1 seat at Aston Martin, so let all the silly season scenario makers do their thing. Deanna, we talked about it. We were waiting for it, and here it is. Here was the drop. We knew we were going to get something. So we've got all sorts of interesting potential replacements. So first off, before we get into that, I think reflections on Seb's career. Dee, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think based off of world titles, he is tied with Prost for most successful driver ever, with 4 titles. And I think it's pretty incredible what he did that from 2010 to 2013. That first win at Toro Rosso, and just some great stuff, especially early in his career. Had some mixed times over at Ferrari. But yeah, I think incredible driver, great person. Sad to see him go. I do kind of think this was maybe the right time. I think it's kind of good to see another seat open where hopefully we can maybe get some younger talent in, remove some people around. Maybe the other side of the garage should go too. But anyway, we'll just keep going with that. But yeah, just great work overall over his career. And yeah, so long, Vettel, sadly.
Yeah, I was never the biggest Vettel fan, I guess. I don't think that should be a surprise to anybody. But I think he did have his moment especially for those 4 years there where he was, the top of the grid. And really couldn't be touched. And of course, he had a really, really good car. But to be as consistent, as dominant as he was for 4 years there is pretty impressive. So yeah, it'll suck to see like anytime an old legend retires from any sport. It sucks a little bit. But some new ones are rising up. So yeah, I think he had a great career, and it'll be nice that he can get honored the rest of the season through. It'll be cool to see him do some donuts at the end of the year. So maybe it's a little overdue, but yeah, it kind of sucks for Aston Martin. Thought that was going to be something kind of special, but now we'll see who they fill that seat with.
Yeah, I mean, I really think amongst modern drivers, or at least in the modern era, I think this is a driver who you've seen the full and complete career arc. Literally coming in as the young hard charger, the quick, the shock win at Toro Rosso. He was the guy that passed Lewis Hamilton on the penultimate lap in Brazil in 2008 that almost cost him his first world championship. Timo, is that Glock notwithstanding. But it was Vettel that put the pressure on, and he was the young and upcomer at that point. Into those championship years where, you were praying somebody could possibly get within DRS range of him during those first couple laps, because he just blitzed the field. When he was at his dominance, he was as good as anybody. And philosophical about it. I remember him doing donuts at Coda saying, hey, guys, remember these moments. They're not going to come along again. And he was right, because that was his last World Championship, and it took Red Bull a while to get back to that level again. And then kind of later in his career, I think, we've seen the maturity where, he became an ambassador for things beyond the sport. His environmental messages, I think, are nothing but positive. I've heard anecdotes that he's just a really good guy in and out of the paddock now. I would say a fond farewell. Like you guys said, I think it sucks that whenever you lose a presence like that, he's a heavy hitter, but it's probably time. I think we had speculated that it was going to be whether or not he wanted to commit to that Aston Martin project, and I think we know what the answer is now.
Yeah, you think that kind of is not a great sign for what Aston Martin maybe had in the pipeline?
I think that probably doesn't help the fact that they created a car and then had to create a B-spec car that quickly into these regulations. That tells me as a driver, they're not on it. And, we're going to develop the rest of this car, but it doesn't look, he's scrapping for 9th and 10th if he's lucky.
But they did find a loophole.
They expected him to be. They did. Now, maybe that rear wing is a something. That rear wing could be a something. We'll see.
You want to talk replacements real quick here for a minute?
The obvious ones, if you're looking young, obviously there's an F2 field that is more than willing to fill that seat. The obvious name would be Oscar Piastri, because he currently doesn't have a seat. There's a lot of up-and-comers in F2 that look, Drugovich is probably going to win that championship. That seems to be all but done, too. So he could be a name. But I don't know that Aston Martin wants to go young, because that then makes Lance Stroll their number one driver. And I don't think they're ready for that. So if you look at veterans who are available, I think the linchpin to this is going to be Fernando Alonso. I don't think he's going to jump ship. I think he's either going to go back to Alpine or he's going to call it a day. But if he decides to go, that would probably be their best fit. That would be the guy, if I'm Aston Martin, I'm going after him. But the other name I've heard bandied about is Nico Hulkenberg, but you'd have to get him out of retirement. And does he want to commit to that? From a fitness perspective, he's got nothing else to prove, but hasn't gotten that podium yet, so that may be a draw. But, that looks like a ways away from the Aston Martin perspective, too. So lots of possibilities, not a whole lot of clarity yet.
I will have to say I don't see why they would take the jump on Alonso, because they just lost a older multi-world champion that is obviously not going to be there for the longer future. I think, personally, I would love to see somebody like a Gasly finally jump the Red Bull ship. That's someone that, he hasn't had a great season this year, but he can kind of pull out those amazing performances. He's on the younger side, but still has enough experience that I think he kind of fits that middle gap in there. So I think that personally would be my ideal. I've heard Albon tossed around. I've heard Mick Schumacher. But I think both of those two, Albon, I would prefer over Schumacher for sure. But I see him probably staying at Williams and with Piastri. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's kind of what I was thinking, too, is Pierre Gasly would be a good fit. Because I feel like with Vettel announcing that, it almost cements Stroll's place in the team for at least another season, because I don't think they'd want to have two brand new drivers. I think they want to have somebody sticking around that's dealt with the mess that's this year and can help develop them for next year, which I don't know if Lance Stroll is the guy, but that's their only option right now. But yeah, I think Pierre Gasly would fit. I saw Ricardo's name at one point, but I don't know. I don't know why he would want to do that.
He's going to go from one Merc-powered car to another Merc-powered car with less downforce. Yeah, I don't see that.
So it's I don't know. It'll be interesting, but it could be good for Gasly to get away from
I agree.
Red Bull machine.
Well, we've said that many times. I think that Gasly's ultimate salvation is somewhere outside of the Red Bull family. Why he chose or continues to choose to re-up, maybe it's just because it's all he knows, and he thought that the AlphaTauri would give him the best shot to maybe get another freak win or two. It's obviously not proven the case this year. So, but they'd have to break that contract. So, and those are things that can obviously happen if the opportunity comes. And I know Helmut Marko wouldn't feel bad to see Gasly out of the Red Bull family. At least I don't think so. So they might be able to make it happen.
Yeah. And then, Andy, do we have a comment from a fan of the show?
Yeah, our Rachel Fleming. Actually, as my phone was blowing up with this news, I was getting quite a few little texts from people out in my following. Rachel Fleming contributed a DM to the show right then and there. She said, "Well, surprise, surprise, Vettel is going at the end of the season. Do you think this will lead to the return of the Hulk in 2023? Or will Aston Martin look elsewhere, Piastri, Albon, or one of the various McLaren standbys, possibly even Latifi to make it a full-fledged Team Canada?"
My kind of addendum to when I said Gasly, I feel like if Gasly leaves AlphaTauri, I think Albon is still signed to Red Bull. I think that might be the chance for Red Bull to pull Albon back to AlphaTauri, and then you have 2 open Williams seats. So then you have Piastri, and then who do you put in that seat? I don't know. I also don't think I'd want Hulk back at this point because he's been out for 2 years. Yes, he's subbed a couple races, but I don't think that's worth it.
Yeah. Agreed. I think Hulk would be a weird one.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do. But this is, to me, this is a product of, they let Otmar go. And when that happened, I think this is going to carry Vettel with it because Otmar was the guy who recruited Vettel in. So, I'm not totally surprised that this ends up playing out the way that it did.
We will see what Mike Crack can do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's it for that news for the review episode here. So let's move on to the qualifying recap. And for that, I hand it off to Andy.
All right. So what turned out to not be a wet qualifying session, even though we thought for sure we were going to get one, it ended up drying out. It did rain earlier in the day, but going out in P20 was Nicholas Latifi, who was P1 in free practice 3 and finishes qualifying in P20. P19 was Pierre Gasly. P18 was Sebastian Vettel. P17 was Alex Albon. P16 was Yuki Tsunoda. Advancing through to Q2, but going no farther, in P15 was Mick Schumacher, P14 was Lance Stroll, P13 was Kevin Magnussen, P12 was Joe Granu, P11, bit of a shocker here, had a lap time deleted but reinstated, but it didn't ultimately matter, Sergio Checo Perez. Advancing through to the Q3 shootout, in P10, with some engine trouble that behested his final qualifying attempt, that would be Max Verstappen. P9 was Daniel Ricciardo. P8 was Valtteri Bottas. P7 was Lewis Hamilton. P6, Fernando Alonso. P5, Esteban Ocon. P4 was Lando Norris. P3 was Charles Leclerc. P2 was Carlos Sainz. And he left it till the end, but Mr. Saturday rides supreme, George Russell in the Mercedes.
All right, thank you, Andy. Any thoughts on qualifying, Deanna?
The single most Latifi thing of all time was on his final lap of qualifying. Set a purple sector 1.
Yes, he
and
did.
Still finished P20.
And it was a purple sector 1 by like 0.2 too. It was like a 28-1. I looked at that. I said, wait, what? And then
I thought for sure he had to have cut some corner or something like that. I was like, there's no way that's right.
It's like the chicane in Spain where they just all keep going around it. Yeah. And they just, during testing and all that.
And then his sector 2 was a personal best, I think. And then it was the third sector that he...
it was the last corner where he just almost dropped
it. He shocked himself so much.
I mean, he literally went from the outhouse to the penthouse and back to the outhouse within the span of a day. So... I guess qualifying pace is possible in that car, but need a better pilot, I guess. Yikes.
Yeah. Saturday was not bad. Both my guys got pipped by George Russell, but I was like, hey, good for Georgie boy. First pole, I was confident in the Ferrari's race pace. So I was like, hey, Verstappen and Perez 10 and 11. It's going to be an awesome Sunday.
Well, this is what we were talking about last week, Andy. Mercedes kind of Achilles heel recently has been qualifying, but Russell put it together and started from the row. Hamilton, on the other hand, had that issue, which
with the DRS, yes.
But they're pulling that together too. So I think they're getting there.
Oh, and this was after Friday, where it was like the script was written. Both Russell goes and Hamilton go in front of the cameras. We're so far off, and then Saturday morning, it's a good thing the track dried out because had it rained, the Mercedes looked god awful on the intermediates or the full wets, but track dried out. Perfect temperatures for them. and George Russell, one hell of a lap at the end. No purple sectors, actually, throughout the entirety of the lap, but the aggregate lap time is good enough to take the pole. So good on you, buddy. Mr. Saturday rides again.
Yeah, that can't happen very often where the pole time is set with 0 purple sectors. But,
also,
congrats to George Russell.
And
go ahead.
Sainz, at this point, look the better of the Ferrari drivers. That changed later, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will. All right, let's go lights out. Get into the race on Sunday. First up, we got the back markers. The only driver not to finish the race, Valtteri Bottas, finishing in P20 there. Not finishing. Yuki Tsunoda in 19th. Nicholas Latifi in 18th. Alexander Albon right in front of him at 17th. K-Mag in 16th. Danny Ricciardo in 15th. Mick Schumacher in 14th. Zhou Guanyu in 13th. Andy, first up, anybody sticking out to you there, or is it just Danny Ricciardo?
Starting to become another thing that's getting old and not funny. But this one I don't think is actually Danny's fault. I thought he was pretty much on the pace throughout most of the weekend. He has that awesome move where he gets both of the Alpines. He was sitting pretty good in P7. And then for some reason, in what I'm just going to call hard tire-itis, which apparently started to spread amongst the paddock, the McLaren pit wall decides at the same time that Lance Stroll comes in and puts on a set of soft tires that we're going to put the hard tire. And as we're going to find out, the hard tire was not a good tire. And when David Croft at the beginning of the episode, beginning of the broadcast says the hard tire 30 seconds in, I went back and rewatched it, is probably not going to get featured very much today. That's probably a bad decision. And that's ominous for what we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, basically screwed him over, and he goes out, hits the aforementioned Lance Stroll, picks up a 5-second penalty, and then proceeded to drop like a stone because those tires would not fire up, had no grip, and could have been double points. I thought overall his qualifying pace was much better. He was much closer to Lando this time. So good signs, bad execution on the Ricciardo side of the garage.
And this is, Alpine and McLaren at least kind of screwed themselves on tire allocations. They only had one set of hard and one set of mediums left, which I'm also not really sure how they did that because FP3 was wet. So normally you kind of see a buildup in tires.
I think they both ran 2 sets of mediums, one in free practice 1, one free practice 2.
Got it. But yeah, so tire allocation really screwed some people over this week because all they had was that one set of hards, that one set of mediums, and then 4 sets of used softs. So that did not bode well for them.
And they could have gone, Danny would have had to do 21 laps on the softs. And I think what spooked at least the McLaren pit wall was the early deg that they saw on both Lando and Danny's car. I think Lando pitted on lap 14, so they figured they weren't going to be able to push it for another 7 laps. But that was when the track was super green and the cars were full of fuel. So it's a different parameters when they made that decision. Obviously, as the data shows here, it proved to be the wrong one.
Yeah, I think my only takeaway from the back markers is that of the last 8, 4 of them are Ferraris and 4 of them aren't. So it's just more pain and misery coming from me right now. So if there's nothing else from the back markers, we can go ahead and move on to the midfield.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. All right, we have Pierre Gasly in 12th, Lance Stroll in 11th, Sebastian Vettel, after announcing retirement, gets himself a point in P10, Esteban Ocon in 9th, right behind Fernando Alonso in 8th, Lando Norris finishing the day in 7th, Charles Leclerc in 6th place, Sergio Checo Perez climbs back up to 5th, and Carlos Sainz drops to 4th place to finish the race. D, you mentioned Pierre Gasly, maybe fitting in an Aston Martin. Another non-point scoring day from him from AlphaTauri. Anything from his day you want to bring up?
Really, on the face of it, it wasn't that bad of a day because he did start from the pit lane and made it up to 12th with only 1 retirement. So overall, not too bad. He was another one kind of screwed by tire allocations. Only had 1 hard, 1 medium. And I think they pitted for that last set of softs pretty early. He did not go on the hards, though. So a little bit better than a couple of the people behind him. But yeah, I think overall qualifying was pretty terrible. But I think the actual race day, considering where the AlphaTauri has been, wasn't horrendous.
All right, Andy, Lando Norris finishing in 7th. What do you got on him?
Kind of a very lonely race, actually. I mean, he starts in 4th, managed to hold it, but he started on the soft tire. Like, as I mentioned earlier, he had the early deg. He was probably one of the first to take the pit stop, switched over to the mediums, was doing well on that tire, but was very concerned on the radio about the left front. That seemed to be the tire that was having the most amount of graining. He was probably far enough out to where the hard tire, unfortunately, probably made sense for him. And he was probably, of anybody, the only guy to really kind of make it work, because he comes home P7. It is in front of both Alpines, who, by the way, were obsessed with apparently trying to take each other out the entire race. So, good on them for not wrecking, I guess. But, if you're Alpine, you got to be wanting to clunk your heads of your drivers going, guys, we could have maybe gone one or two positions higher, but probably where they were in terms of relative pace is probably this finishing order with Lando 7, Alonso 8th, and Ocon 9th. So yeah, that's kind of the McLaren Alpine battle, I think, kind of summarized.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alpine's been kind of interesting of late. I think they have the lead on McLaren pretty good, but I think they do battle each other quite a bit. I think Ocon is that kind of driver and doesn't want to be bested by Alonso, but it does get them in a lot of trouble. I mean, even at one point it was like Vettel was sticking his nose in there with the Alpines, which that Aston Martin probably shouldn't be in the same class as them. So that could be a problem as we move on with the season. And also, like you mentioned, if Alonso decides to hang it up after this year, like he's not going to give any ground to Ocon. He's going to be trying to finish it ahead of him every single race. So Checo Perez finished in 5th place. So he had a terrible Saturday, as you already talked about. Dee, what do you think about his day, getting back up to 5th place and scoring a decent amount of points for Red Bull?
Honestly, the only kind of note I had for him today is he just kind of existed. Like, they got past the Alpines and Norris in the beginning, and then he just wasn't really a factor at all throughout the day. He did finish, technically, I think, 3/10 behind, or Leclerc only finished 3/10 behind Perez. So he almost got overtaken at the end by Leclerc, who had stopped for a 3rd time. So yeah, it just wasn't really on the pace. Also had the struggle in qualifying. And yeah, it just was there, is all I have to say about that.
I think it's actually a really fair summary. To move up, what was it, like 6 places? And like kind of not do anything to do that. And just be that just missing the whole race was interesting. But yeah, he was the middle of the Ferrari sandwich. Leclerc finishing in 6th and Carlos Sainz finishing in 4th. Not the finish that many were expecting and hoping for, at least those that root for Ferrari like myself. Pretty rough day. I'd say things were looking pretty good early on. And I don't know. I guess I really thought that they were going to leave Leclerc out as long as possible and try and extend them first mediums. But they decided against that. And then that kind of started just like the downfall. And to pit again and put the hards on. And then those just didn't work. And it was almost like it was just like a rock falling down the grid. And then just doubled down and we switched to softs with 15 laps to go. And that wasn't going to save anything. To get back up in the 6th, I guess is fine. Maybe with another lap or 2 could have passed Sergio Perez, but even a 5th place finish wouldn't have meant anything here. Carlos Sainz as well in 4th place. It's just, he looked like the faster Ferrari driver on Saturday, like you said, D, but then turned out Leclerc was actually probably the faster driver. Just got screwed by Ferrari. It was his turn to be the one getting screwed over yet again. But yeah, Andy or D, anything on Ferrari? Maybe a sliver of hope?
Sliver of hope? No.
I mean...
I thought I'd ask.
I got things to say, but it's not that.
The car's still fast. I mean, it's just, but it's maddening that it's always something different. It's never the same problem, so you can't corral it or try to eliminate it. Like if it was one thing, you could say, here it is. But guy at the strategy desk, more groupthink. you said roll his head last time. I think that's got to go. They have got to look at their process, this decision-making process. Like I said, Crofty knew it in the first 30 seconds of the broadcast. What are you doing putting on a set of hard tires there? It makes no sense. None.
Yeah. So my few comments on this. I think, we'll get to Verstappen, but I think the way that they executed that so well today is they were fully in the driver's seat. They made their strategy decisions and just kind of went with it. Whereas Ferrari just did some weird stuff. So first of all, they started on mediums. I think most people, like Verstappen, Russell, Perez, they all started on softs. But they pitted Sainz to cover off Russell, who's on softs, from his medium. So that 17-lap stint was the shortest medium stint of anybody in the race. The second shortest medium stint was what they did to Leclerc on his second stint. So Leclerc came in, undercut. Why did I just
overcut?
Overcut. I don't know why I just really struggle with that. Overcut Sainz. He was I think 5 seconds up the road from whoever was in second at that point. He was lapping a half a second quicker than every other person on track. He had only done 18 laps on those mediums. We had seen K-Mac on hards. We were watching the Alpines on hards struggling, and they decided to bring him in and put him on hards. On lap 38, before Verstappen pitted for the second time, he was also the one that triggered the second pit cycle. Leclerc was 7.2 seconds ahead. By lap 41, Verstappen had overtaken Leclerc post pit stops because he had been on those hard tires for like a lap, and it was just so painful to watch. It was really bad, and then he got overtaken again just for more pain.
Yeah, I mean, it literally looked like the cartoon equivalent of, the big cane coming in from the side and grabbing a hold of Charles's rear end and just pulling him back. I mean, that's how painful it really kind of was to watch. I just, and again, we talked about this, I think, from the French Grand Prix. When you're on the harder compound, the play is you have to extend the stints to make that work, whether it's medium versus soft or hard versus medium. It doesn't matter. You're on the harder of the two compounds that started the race. You have to go further into the race than the guys on the soft tires. And, you nullify the advantage of the medium tire by doing that. Now, he had an extra set of medium tires, so maybe they obviously tried to invent something. I didn't know what the ultimate call was, but why do you take him off in that second stint there at that point? I didn't get it. To cover off Verstappen, you might as well would have waited another 5 laps and put him on the soft tires anyway.
Yes. My favorite thing was, I think it was like Sean Kelly tweeted this. Pirelli does the predicted tire strategies, and they gave about 4 or 5 different options, and nowhere on there was medium, hard an option. Nowhere.
What about medium, hard, soft?
Really not on there. Oh my God, you just watch those hards come out. Like, granted, I'm sure I know being a strategist is an incredibly difficult job. I could not do it, but I think every single person in the world knew putting on those hards was a bad decision, and I don't know how that slipped through the cracks.
I think it's got to be that they make too many decisions based on what other teams are doing or specific people are doing, and they just get so twisted up in their own heads, I think, and then it's just like, bleh.
Right,
and then that's what they do, and it's just like it's gross. I think they have, and they've mentioned it even more, I feel like, in the last couple of broadcasts about like, oh, Ferrari's saying plan B. Like they're never that early in the alphabet. It's always like plan Z and W and triple X. Like it's like just always this random shit. And it's like I feel like their initial plan can be good, but then as soon as something happens that they weren't expecting or it's a little bit out of the ordinary, it's just like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? Like spin the wheel and whatever it lands on, that's what we're gonna try and do. And it's just maybe it has something to do with the leadership. I don't know. But
we've said it,
Mr. Positivity.
We've said it there too. I mean, at some point the debate has to stop. Now, I don't know how the debate stops, and this is what they came up with. But I mean, the only thing I could think of is that and in the post race, and Mattia, I'm sure, has gotten absolutely roasted in the Italian press already, probably doing a better job than I ever could. But it sounded like they were relying on the data from Friday when the track temperature was 20-something degrees Celsius higher than what it was. It was 95 degrees Fahrenheit out, and the race, it was like in the 60s today because of the rain, because of the clouds and the rain. So, I mean, tires are going to react differently when the temperatures are that different. It boggles the mind. And you've got two really talented drivers that are just suffering because of it. Leclerc knew it 1 lap into it. You heard him say these tires are dog shit right on the radio there.
My favorite was the Lewis, George, and Max in the cool down room looking at. They're like, "Oh, he was on the hards." Like everybody knew that was a bad idea, and it was just so painful to watch. He was so much quicker than everybody else through that middle stint. It looked like he was just going to run away with it. And, I mean, had they just left him out for, like, I don't know, 5-10 more laps? Not even? He would have been
10 laps on 80% of his pace, and he can walk into a soft tire and be fine.
Yep. Oh, Ferrari.
Well, that was fun. I guess we can move on to the podium now, which features 2 Mercedes drivers for the second race in a row. George Russell this time in third, Lewis Hamilton in second, and Max Verstappen from 10th to 1st. I think that's the farthest he's ever come for a race win in his career, young career. So congratulations to him. But first, let's go to Mercedes. Deanna, what do you think about their double podium today?
I mean, talked about this last week. It was the first time they had legitimately beat a Red Bull, and now this time, due to strategy and some other things and actual pace, they beat 2 Ferraris and a Red Bull. So that is trending very much in the right direction for them. And yeah, just some great stuff all around. Hamilton with an incredible drive from 7th to that last stint he did on the softs. He made the mediums last for 32 laps, which was the longest stint anybody did on the mediums, Ferrari, and was able to go into the softs and I think he came out 20 seconds behind Verstappen and finished the race about 7 seconds behind in those last 19 laps. So just really impressive pace from him. Russell, tires kind of died on him at the end, so he was passed by his teammate. But he had some fun, like the defense on Leclerc was great to watch. Just a lot of fun. And on pole and double podium for the second week in a row, things are trending in the right direction.
Yeah, not believing Toto Wolff anymore on Friday. Don't believe anything that team says on a Friday from now to the end of this season because they're good. They're in the fight. Yeah. You're watching the delta week after week get closer and closer and closer, and it's going to be, Verstappen and Hamilton are going to have a couple fights for a win, I think, before this season is out, and so will Russell. You're watching the one who is in Hamilton, and then the next one come up in Russell, and Mercedes, I think, is going to be that. The sleeping giant is no longer sleeping; they're awake. We said there was going to be a power vacuum. We're halfway through the season. Power vacuum is now pretty much closed, and here come the Mercedes.
Yeah, that was a nice scrap with George Russell and Charles Leclerc earlier in the race. And yeah, I mean, Mercedes just seems to be getting stronger and stronger as the season goes on. And yeah, maybe we will see a couple fights for the win. I hope we see some kind of fights in the second half of the season. But man, things would have to go really, really wrong for Red Bull to have any sort of fight on their hands for either the Constructors or the Drivers' Championship, because Max Verstappen, with another win today, didn't get the fastest lap that went to Lewis Hamilton, but he did get the 25 points that goes to the winner. So he has got a stranglehold on this Drivers' Championship this year. Impressive drive. Dee, you can lead us off. What do you think about Max today?
Yeah, just great. I think he only made his probably second mistake of the year in race with that spin, but still overtook Leclerc for the lead twice. That was great. And I think also really massive shout out to the strategy department. I can't remember what's her name that leads it. Great, because they were the ones opposite to Ferrari. They did their own race. They triggered the second pit top cycle at least. I think maybe the first as well for the leaders. And just kind of, they put their head down and they got it done. And yeah, it was awesome to watch and really, really great drive from 10th on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, it's Max
Andy.
again. Here's the line. Come fight me over this line. And, you know, we saw Mercedes were over it for a time in this race and couldn't quite get there. For the Ferraris, were definitely there for parts of this race. And again, for what we've already talked about, couldn't stay there again. So, and that's despite of the spin. And if you're going to do a spin, that's the way to do a spin, where you don't flat spot the tire and you just go up and get on with it and have no ill effects from it. So that was just an incredible bit of car control in a moment of no car control. So, I mean, you can see that, for whatever you want to say about Max, the racecraft is definitely still there and still really good, because I think earlier in his career, that car ends up in a barrier or in the pit wall or something like that. So that's just the empirical look at kind of the evolution of what they're doing. I mean, yeah, he's got his arms around this championship right now. They're going to have some major reliability issues now. There is going to be one race where he's going to have to take an engine penalty. This was probably the only chink in the Red Bull armor, was that they ended up using the engine number 3 here versus post summer break. But that's not a whole lot. I mean, this isn't an engine dependent circuit. I don't think it's going to kill it that much.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right with with that one race. They'll still find a way to score some points, I'm sure. Deanna, I looked it up real quick. That was Hannah Schmitz. Leads up the strategy department there at Red Bull, and she does an awesome job. Hopefully she grew up a Ferrari fan and wants to go help the boys in red. But all right, that's it for our race review. We're going to take a quick break, pay some bills around here, hear from Andy and Athletic Greens, and then we'll be back to talk about driver, constructor standings, some fan emails, predictions that suck for me too, but yeah, we'll be back. Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 31 of the Outlap F1 Podcast, part of the Ship It Studios Podcast Network, where we are talking about the 2022 Hungarian Grand Prix. Once again, I'm your host, James, along with Andy and Deanna, and we have the driver standings coming up next. Dee, why don't you give us a rundown?
All right, so still leading the championship is Max Verstappen on 258 points. In second, a full 80 points behind, is Charles Leclerc on 178, and only 5 points behind him is Sergio Perez in third. This week, George Russell repasses Sainz for fourth on 158. That is also only 20 points behind Charles Leclerc as well, so really having quite the season over there at Mercedes. Again, Sainz is in fifth on 156. Hamilton is in sixth on 146. Norris is in seventh on 76. Ocon in eighth on 58. Bottas in ninth on 46. And Fernando Alonso in 10th on 41 points.
Not a big fan how excited you seem to be when you talk about Charles Leclerc and where he's at in the standings, but
well, now it's over between
Verstappen.
So we got,
You got to look at where the battles are somewhere, and 2 through 5 apparently seem to be it. I mean, Lando's in his own little universe there in seventh. Maybe if they've been it a few times, Ocon will get him, but I don't think so.
All right, Andy, run down the team standings for us.
All right, so our team standings. Red Bull Racing Powertrain on 431 points, a awesome first half of the season for them. Second is Ferrari. This is an improvement over last season. 334 points, nothing to be ashamed of there. Third is Mercedes on 304. Fourth is Alpine on 99. Fifth is McLaren on 95. Sixth is Alfa Romeo on 51. Seventh is Haas on 34. Eighth is AlphaTauri on 27. P9 is Aston Martin on 20. And in P10 is Williams with the 3 points.
Thank you, Andy. I hand it back off to Deanna for the fan emails.
All right, so first up, Rachel Fleming says, I really don't know what to say about Ferrari. No blame to the drivers again. How the hell did Max win this race? I have seriously had enough of Ferrari now. Max has won the title. Red Bull's only threat of the constructors is Mercedes. Only the Orange Army are enjoying this now. Okay, I might be a little annoyed at Ferrari. I think we all kind of feel the same, because imagine the title fight that we could have if they could execute a race.
I mean, I think the long and the short of this, I think what everybody's kind of saying is they weren't ready. They weren't ready to compete for the championships. They had the car to do it. I feel like we're already reading the postmortem and we still got half the season to go, which is strange. But I don't think execution-wise they were ready for what the crucible of competing at this level necessarily was. I don't think that it doesn't mean that they can't come back next year, learn from it, but they have got to look at procedure and who does what and who says what and when, and they've got to break it down and put it all back together. They're engineers. They're smart people. You got to be really smart to work in Formula One. I'm confident they can solve it, but I don't know if it's going to be solved this year because they just refuse to for whatever reason.
Yeah, I agree with that one, except for the little annoyed at Ferrari part. I'm a tad more than that. But.
A lot annoyed. All right, next up, Dave Doherty says, your thoughts on the strategies of the big boys at the front. So I'm not sure exactly, but did anybody have any additional thoughts?
Not a whole lot more than what we kind of already said. I mean, I think the Red Bull strategy was probably, the aces of it today. The Mercedes strategy, they split the two drivers. You understood why, and they probably got the most of what they could out of today's race. I said this could be where, Mercedes could do something special, and look what happened. P2, P3 yet again. So they are coming onto the form. The car's still there for Ferrari, and the drivers are still there for Ferrari. So, they can still continue to do it. We've talked enough about the strategy call. I'm not going to beat the now dead prancing horse anymore.
You can pretty much sum it up like a lot of races. Red Bull with the smartest strategy, Mercedes with the most sensible strategy, and Ferrari just fucking sucks.
Great summary. All right, next up, the formula says the new regs are absolutely helping the racing. We also seem to be heading to a true three-way fight on speed at least each week going forward. That makes for a tantalizing prospect for the second half of the season. So, yeah.
I appreciate the positivity.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, I think you're still you have the potential to still see some really awesome racing. I mean, it may not be for the ding dong with the Drivers' World Championship at this point, unless, Red Bull has some sort of, issue that crops up, and that we've seen happen, and that could still happen. But I do think in every race coming in, I'm looking at the remaining tracks, and I don't know necessarily who's going to be the dominant car there. So, I mean, it is going to be a bit of a lottery to see. And if you've got 6 legit cars, with any one of them could on their day, if they do everything right and dot the I's and cross the T's, could win. Hey, that's a heck of a lot. We haven't had that in over 10 years.
Yeah, I think the summer break will be a good chance for me to kind of recalibrate my expectations for the rest of the season. And I think there's still a few chances for Ferrari to get a win or a double podium. So there's going to be some moments for excitement the rest of the season. But, overall, it's not looking so hot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Ferrari versus Mercedes for the rest of the season.
Well, I'll say this. I'll help you feel a little bit better. Ferrari will win one more race this year at least. They will win at least one.
Thanks, Andy.
And they'll lose a whole bunch more. All right, next up. Chad Depew says, the new reg... Oh, I already read that. Okay, last fan email is from Quentin Warden, who I believe is a longtime supporter of the show. So thank you very much for that. So he says, hey all, first time I've emailed the show, but after another Ferrari disaster class, I guess I need the place to vent, lol. I just don't know where to turn with this team anymore. It seems like they find a new way to screw something up every race. Putting Charles on hard tires made no sense under the conditions. I guess they thought the longer life would come back at the end of the race. With the points deficit they have, strategy needs to be aggressive, but it feels like they have already thrown in the towel and admitted defeat. I don't want to give up on Tia because I do believe his engineering knowledge is brilliant, and we have seen that with how they have improved the pace on each of the last few races. The rest of the team, however, is so out of their element on race days, it ultimately has to reflect on the boss, for not instilling a winning culture. On a better note, this season has still been fun, seeing how the new regulations make following and overtaking easier. It's a shame that the title battle seems to be a runaway for Max, but I still find myself watching every race because the action has been so good. Thanks and keep up the great work. Quentin. lovely email. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Shout out to Quentin, longtime supporter of the show. Appreciate you. You kind of nail it here. And I appreciate hearing the venting. It's good to know I'm not alone. It's a little harder for me to hang on to that much hope with Mattia. I think you're right. He is a brilliant guy. I just think he's in the wrong role. And it's not like he's going to take a step back and just focus on the engineering stuff. He is meant to lead the team, and I think he's back to doing a terrible job of that. But yeah, overall, I agree with what you're saying there. Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Quentin, this is an awesome summary of a lot of what we've talked about throughout the course of the episode. Simply because, yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. Like I keep coming back to, I wish it was one thing. Like if it was the pit stops were bad, you could fix that. You could change personnel out, or if it was, the drivers not getting the most out of the car, you could possibly make a change there. And I'm not suggesting that Ferrari should do that. But I think it comes down to look at the process. I hope they take the summer break and they literally do the Venn diagram, or the thing with the shapes of the process and the decision tree as to how they come to the decisions that they do. Because I think they're smart. I think they can figure it out. They just gotta do themselves. Like, go out. Your car's quick. Go out. And to me, if I'm them for the rest of this season, I just say, you know what? We're going to be give them the raciest strategy, push the pace. If we blow up, so what? We've done plenty of blowing up already. Why? What's a few more? So just have it go and get what you can out of this season. Come back, re-rack, and come back and contend for the championship, because they're going to be right in the fight next year for sure.
Yeah, I think the rest of the season should just kind of be learn as much as you possibly can. Do all the, just try a bunch of different things. But yeah, ultimately, I do think it looks like a leadership issue. There's just so many things that are falling through the cracks. But yeah, I think overall they probably have a lot of the right people, but just not executing consistently in the way that they should. So yeah, they need some help.
All right. Well, now we move on to the weekly awards. And for that, we start off with rubbish. I'll go first. Ferrari. That's all I got. Andy, what do you got for rubbish?
Oh, boy. All right. So here's the part of the episode where I probably get a little annoyed and angry about things. Two equally stupid things that I saw go on this weekend. One, the story that came out, and I'm always hesitant to talk about the events of Abu Dhabi and specifically Michael Massey, but this one, this has got to get shown to light. The fact that people were sending this guy death threats. Anybody who does that, and I can guess what type of fans did that, ought to be thrown in jail, full stop. That's ridiculous. We're talking about cars going around in some sort of a shape, clockwise, counterclockwise, and to lose perspective like that is just really disturbing. And I saw a lot of butting on Twitter over the course of this weekend, and that's just as wrong. We're talking about death threats here. Come on. If you can't be human about it, what are you doing? And two, to the other side of this rivalry, to anybody who thinks it's a good idea to go and spend what I can only assume has to be hard-earned money, buy somebody's merchandise, which is not cheap, and then choose to burn it in front of people and run around like wild savages about it. There's a special place in the stupid bin if that's what you think having a good time is. So I know this is one of my more treasured possessions. It's one of the most expensive hats I've ever bought in my life. If you don't want it, find a kid. Find somebody small, give it to them, make their day. But you're going to do that, I got no place for it. Out.
Andy, that might have been your best rubbish in your time here at Outlet. when I get angry, I don't burn things. I don't make death threats. I just responsibly drink some bourbon. And now, we've been recording for about an hour now, and I don't even remember why I was mad at the beginning of the show. Things are working out. For that, I thank you, John. This was pretty damn good. Deanna, who do you got for rubbish?
I agree with Andy, but I'm also going with you, James, and just saying Ferrari.
Thanks. Analysis Paralysis. Same answer for me, Ferrari. That's all I'm going to say. Deanna, go
Ferrari.
ahead. All right, Andy.
All right. Well, I will dare to be different here. And mine is going to go out and just say Andrea Seidel should walk over and buy Mattia Binotto a big German beer. Because if it wasn't for the Leclerc thing, the call to put Ricciardo on the hard tires was just as dumb and just as stupid and cost him the points that McLaren apparently need a lot more than Ferrari do right now. But lucky for him, it's not going to get the pub that this Ferrari mess, which they made themselves, is going to get. So analysis paralysis for McLaren and Ferrari.
Alrighty. Dark horse of the day. Andy, who do you got for dark horse?
All right, I'm going to give this one to Sebastian Vettel. P18 to P10 after lap 1, having contact, getting a point out of this race. Shows he's still got it a little bit. Again, on kind of a retirement weekend, you think kind of the weight's off the shoulders. He'll just go out and race, hopefully get some more points for that team for the rest of the year. Good on you, Seb.
In response to that, would like to give a little bit of credit to Stroll because he was the lead Aston Martin for the entire day. Also didn't have a great tire allocation and had to drag an old set of softs to the end. And that's when Vettel got passed. So I did it last weekend, so whatever, I will credit Stroll when it's due.
Interesting. Is Stroll your dark horse then, or are you just making a note on Andy's?
I was just making a note.
So then who's your
my
dark horse?
Only because my driver of the day is going to go somewhere else, but it's got to be Lewis Hamilton, coming from 7th and then all the way up to 2nd. And had really great pace. And maybe had he qualified up where Russell was, maybe that could have been a race win today.
I thought for sure you were about to say Sebastian Vettel was your dark horse, and I was going to lose it. So good choice there too.
Thanks.
For me, I'm going with Lando Norris. Great qualifying, and then hung on for 7th place. He continues to wipe the floor with his teammate, Danny Ricciardo, who, I almost put Danny Rick, Andy, as my dark horse only because of that sweet move he pulled on both Alpines, passing them. Probably the highlight of my day, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed that. So I almost gave him the dark horse, but I can't when he finishes way down 15. So Lando Norris, my dark horse. All right, driver of the day, Deanna. I think I know who you're going to pick, but why don't you tell us?
Max Verstappen, starting in 10th, winning the race. Great strategy, great execution, minus the spin, but he overtook Leclerc twice. He also had an issue with his clutch slipping as well, that I think he had to deal with it throughout the race. And just excellent drive. Minus the spin.
Yep, couple different times during the race, I thought Verstappen was in trouble with the clutch and then with the spin, and both times he came back and just was Max Verstappen. That's why I'm giving him my driver of the day as well. He's on some other sort of alien type form right now, and he's going to be hard to stop for the foreseeable future. Andy, who do you have for your driver of the day?
I'm giving it to both Lewis and Max almost equally, simply because both overcame qualifying troubles and they both got probably the most out of their respective races. For Max to spin and then win is hard to do, so I massively respect that. And for Lewis coming back after the qualifying thing and showing well, we thought he could do something special. I think everybody's right when they said if he didn't have the qualifying trouble, he might have been in the position to get the win today. So I was most impressed by both Lewis and Max today, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah. Also, just one more point, because somebody tweeted this, that this was the first time since 2018 that neither Lewis or Max started in the top 6, and they both come back and finish in the top 2. So definitely the two best drivers on the grid.
Okay. Good stat. All right, Andy, will you run through the prediction results for us?
All right. So I guess I am the winner chicken dinner of the day. I finished the day with 3 points. I had P1 on the podium with Max, P2 on the podium with Lewis, and I ended up with the race fastest lap, only a couple tenths off of Lewis Hamilton's lap there. John got the point None of us got anything for qualifying except for John, because we all had Charles Leclerc on the pole. So, but John gets the point for the fastest quali time. James, you got 1 point. You did get the prop bet. We had 2 interruptions today. You should be thanking Valtteri Bottas on lap 2, and then on the second to last lap is when we got our interruptions today. So good job with the prop bet there. Deanna gets 1 point. She had P10 with Sebastian Vettel getting the final point there. So you got the bonus pick there. And so to recap our standings, we've done it again. John, Deanna, and myself are now tied for P1 on 30 points apiece. James, you are not that far off. All you got to do is nail a podium, bud. All you got to do is nail a podium. You're right back in it on 24 points.
Thanks, Andy. All right, so any final thoughts from this weekend heading into the summer break? Deanna, how are you going to spend your summer break, and what do you look forward to?
I guess lots of IndyCar as well.
There you go.
We got Nashville next weekend. Yeah, and then hopefully silly season. We start figuring some stuff out about that Aston seat, and honestly, kind of looking forward to just a little bit of a break. Feels like this season in particular has been very much front loaded to try to get this done a little bit sooner. So it'll be much needed 3 weeks.
I agree with that. Andy, final thoughts for you heading into the summer break?
Well, for one, I'm finally going to get a weekend normal sleep schedule. I feel like I haven't had one of those in about 2.5 months. Waking up at 4:30 in the morning to watch F2 or F3 or Formula E or whatever else is going on at that ridiculous hour of the morning. My body's so used to it, it's just kind of weird. So that'll be an interesting reset. You definitely want to watch some IndyCar. It'll be nice to watch Nashville without sweating 2 pints worth of sweat out like last year. So
walking 25 miles.
Yes, exactly.
And then realize we went the wrong way, so then walk in.
Yes.
20.
Yeah,
watch
exactly.
the birds migrate.
So,
don't forget about the birds.
Yes, exactly. The birds that wanted to kill us all and somehow didn't, but we survived it. They'll be watching that. I mean, the IndyCar series, we're going to come down to the final race, so that just continues to get closer and closer. So that'll be a lot of fun. And I'm just going to enjoy, whatever else. I mean, baseball in this town is maddeningly frustrating, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of that. So that's not going to happen. But training camp will start. We'll get into football season, see what goes on there. And then, we've been waiting a year and then some to watch some actual green flag running at Spa-Francorchamps. So that's
don't jinx it.
The carrot at the end of the tree here. So I'm looking forward to that. In 4 weeks' time, we'll be back. And we're going to take you through the rest of this season, good, bad, or ugly. We promise.
Yeah. I look forward to some time off here. Remove myself from Formula One and maybe do a little mending there with some Ferrari heartbreak. But we come back after a short summer break, and then it's a triple header waiting for us on the other side. So that'll be exciting. We'll be here for all the previews and reviews for that. Spa's one of my favorite tracks, so I do hope we actually get to see some racing there for real this year. Besides that, I think some more relaxing, some time up in Michigan, some concerts, I think. So. Can't wait to get back and hear from all you beautiful people out there. But until that, I think I'll hand it off to you, Andy, to finish this up.
Yeah, and as always, take care of each other during this break. And as always, may all your laps be fast.